house party. Oh my goodness. Okay, which one is yours? This one's mine?
That's yours.
Okay. It's gonna be one of those. Miss Lynn. Good morning. How are you doing? I'm good.
Hi.
Do you know Lynn?
No, I don't.
Lynn? Miss Lynn? Oh. Lynn, this is Hi, Google. Hi, Miss Lynn. She's our inclusion.
I just do whatever this lady tells me to do. She said,
From what I can tell, you're
yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so great
pleasure
to
to meet
meet
you as
you.
well.
I'm so excited.
Linda C.
Hello. Hi. Wait a minute. Our
We do.
excited.
And we have the green-blue controversy here.
Yes. Green bubble. We're like, her own husband's. The whole family has iPhones. This one.
You want to be there.
She does.
Just enjoy it, girl.
As an inclusion and diversity professional, you know, we just try and be inclusive of everyone.
We do.
Thank you.
Make space for everyone.
She's from Chicago,
But we do
so
really
that
need
helped
to
her
get
out.
you to Google.
We do. We gotta help her. Oh. It's okay. You can have a Google phone. You can have a.
I know that have to.
That's true.
I have two phones too. One's a Samsung and one's a Pixel.
We're gonna work on you. We're gonna work on you.
I feel like they're trying to convert me before this is all over.
Hey! Oh my goodness. I didn't know either.
They don't record all of them.
Just
I know,
ours.
but this one is. That's what I
I know.
Did you know Selena?
When I saw the room, I didn't know that.
Oh, because it is based on the room?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And they got-
So just remember, your employer could see this later.
they'll be like, there she is. It's fine.
What's that?
It'll be great.
Oh, I'm okay. No time to go. No time to go to the bathroom. Oh well, too late.
No, it's not. Oh, I guess it is.
There might have been a housekeeping thing, like maybe people can ask questions from.
Where would that be, though?
But I don't know how you
Oh,
get there. And I do believe somebody will give us a. No, they will give us a little thing. I think.
Ways.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Like when it's like 10 minutes. I don't know. There was an email Eric sent.
Okay. Did I read that? That was last. Yeah. Right.
Like no one was like, ooh, you know, but in the text space, that's like. That's
Oh,
where
and
everything
this is my very bad work phone.
Well, that's what
I got
I'm
a
saying, though,
15. I got a real phone though for my person.
No, but
Yeah.
my point is like, it's okay that you have your devices.
Oh, with you.
You know,
Yes.
the old school.
Yes.
Other companies outside of tech, like that looks like you don't know what you do.
Oh no.
There, you know.
I love my device. Oh, my name's on there.
Come what may, intelligence and eloquence, stay wise for the innovations and what they try out outstanding
You really do need to tell the team thing is funny.
contributions to
Yes, that
this
is a
Actually
great
funny.
story.
It really is.
Some of my colleagues in here too, they're gonna get a kick out of that.
I'm gonna tell it when I kick it off. When I
Okay.
kick off, not at our intro, but
Okay.
after our intro.
Is somebody coming to kick us off? Or
I don't
we
know.
kick ourselves off?
I think you can kick off.
Oh. Hello? Where's the...
Hello, everyone.
Okay, good morning. It's not afternoon just yet.
Morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Crafting Your Leadership. I have to read the whole screen here. Your leadership identity and building your brand and style. So I'm Nicole Graves. I'll be your moderator panelist today. We're going to have kind of a joint shared session here. So what we'll do is start with introductions, and I'll lead so they'll know what exactly I want you to say. So we'll do name, where you're from, current role, and your favorite streaming TV show, okay? So I am Nicole Graves. I'm from Apple in Cupertino. Oh, hey. I am originally from Chicago, Illinois, though. All right, and I've been actually in the HR space for about 27 years. I'm currently the Director of People for the Office of CFO, and I also support our CIO. And so I've been in this role for about 3 years now, and my favorite streaming show, as you can imagine, is Loot with Maya Rudolph. If you haven't seen it on Apple TV, it's fantastic. And then another one was Severance, also on Apple TV. Yeah, oh, I'll say I hear that. And then, and again, we also watch other shows. So my son works for Disney, and on Hulu, there is Reasonable Doubt. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start over to my right here with Tawny Johnson.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Tawny Johnson with Google. We're not going to have a company, battle or anything
We're going
like
to dance
that.
off here, like a battle.
I am originally from Chicago as well.
Hey.
So at least we can agree on one thing,
Right.
right? But I currently call Atlanta home. I have been in supply chain for over 24 years. I got my degree at Spelman, so hi, sisters. And then at Google, I am the Global Cost Optimization Lead. I've been with Google for almost 3 years, and I have responsibility for our global spend management across all of our operations. So happy to be here.
And what is your favorite streaming show?
So my favorite streaming show is Your Honor on Netflix.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I will say whoever is writing that script, they are not pulling any punches. They are very open and honest about what's happening and the double standards that are out there. And then I have a second that I call my comfort show. I go to bed every night watching Golden Girls. So thank you for being a friend.
Hey. Okay, and over here to my left.
Hello, my name is Zelenda Cyril. I'm not from Google or Apple. I am with Peraton. We are a federal defense contractor. Thank you. And we're not a sponsor here either. But I've been with Peraton for over 20 years. I started off as a systems engineer. I got my degree from Carnegie Mellon University in mathematics and secondary education. And I am a program director who's supporting a team supporting the Department of Defense Cybercrime Center. I didn't say where I'm from. I'm from New Jersey, exit 9, near Rutgers University. And I live in the DC area now. So my favorite show is Bridgerton. I love Bridgerton. It's on Netflix, including Queen Charlotte. I am definitely a Cantony fan, but there's good parts about Pollen that I like. The Duke, he's a lovely looking man, but I can do without the Duke.
Okay.
All right, so you want to do the housekeeping?
Yes, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have a question, we're going to ask that you go to the microphones. We're going to keep it pretty interactive in how we do this, but we'll go ahead and do a presentation first, and we're going to kind of flow with that. So,
All right, so I have been loving working with these two women. I set up a call thinking, hey, it might be easy to set up something. I send them a Teams invite. Unbeknownst to me, Google doesn't allow you to download Teams. Apple doesn't allow you to download Teams. But look at us, we're all
Made it.
happy.
Made it work. We were late to every meeting, but not because we weren't on time. The systems were not on time.
Didn't even cross my mind, that evil Microsoft, I guess, in this context. All right, so I'll go to the next chart. The session objective is to talk about techniques to craft a distinct and influential leadership identity, brand, and style. So my first thing to start with is, what is that unique leadership persona? I ran a nonprofit several years ago, and I used to have people come and talk with my students about branding, marketing, et cetera, as well as career opportunities. And one of the people that came mentioned this tags concept, which I thought was just phenomenal. It really is talking about each of us has our own talents, abilities, gifts, and skills. They are unique to who we are. They're unique to just how we were brought up. And there are things that, in terms of skills, that we can further refine and grow. A lot of times, especially as women, we tend to downplay what these gifts that we are bringing to the table. And what I like about this quote is too many people overvalue what they're not and undervalue what they are. We keep looking outside of us to say, oh, well, that's what it looks like to be a leader, and that's what it looks like to be successful, when there's a lot of accomplishments we each have. So as you think about your leadership persona, start with doing an inventory of those things that you already bring to the table and understanding those gaps in terms of some of the skills that you can do going forward. So when we talk about brand, and your personal brand, it really is about those images and adjectives that come to mind when somebody is thinking of you, what your colleagues, what your friends, what your peers, what your boss is thinking. So when I think about my brand and those adjectives associated with me, I think of words like collaborative, supportive, judgment-free, can get the job done, gives a darn. So I would like to ask my panelists here, what are some of the adjectives that come to mind? I'll start with you, Nicole.
You know, it's funny. One of the things I failed to mention was I was actually a marketing major at the University of Michigan, right down the road here. So brand is so important to me, and yet I think I minimize my own personal brand. And so when I think about myself, you know, she challenged us earlier, collaborator. The other one people tell me about myself is I'm approachable. And so as simple as that sounds, I think that's part of just my DNA and who I am, is being both collaborative and approachable.
So as it relates to approachable, though, for a woman at your level with the teams that you support, like, you hear that because that is a quality we don't usually see in leaders at this level, number one. And she's Black, and she's female, right? And so I think that's why it stands out, because you are not the norm. So lean into that, keep that going. For me, I would say that people would say that I am empathetic. I always think about and look at people first, and also try to get their input and buy-in. I'm also a dependable teammate. So if I'm gonna do something, it might not be when you want it, but it will not be late. You can always trust that my work will be done to completion and on time. And then lastly, I'll say people say that I am inclusive in success. So I recognize that I don't do anything in and of myself alone. There are partners and peers that work alongside of me, and so success is ours, even if my name is at the top of the program. It is our success, so.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yes, and so when you hear these adjectives that others are saying about you, it's kind of thinking, wait, what do I say about myself? If those are positive, then kind of looking and doing the inventory of seeing, hey, am I really like that? And this is great, and these are the things that I'm demonstrating. If it's negative, that's when you're going to have to try to work on fixing those. So what I like about this quote here by Lily Tomlin is, I always wanted to be somebody, but now I see I had to be more specific. So your personal brand is one of those things that you have to actively manage. So how do you do that? This was a book that I read several years ago, and I had the fortune with one of my company's ERGs, employee resource groups, to have the speaker come and talk about it. It's called Brag, The Art of Tooting Your Horn Without Blowing It. I feel I grew up as a young woman and a woman of color and a woman of a Caribbean family that was taught, don't brag, don't toot your own horn, stop, be humble. No one wants to hear somebody's boo, 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 boo all the time. So it was really hard for me to truly own my accomplishments, market my accomplishments, talk about my accomplishments. And this book really helped me look at that and reframe it into that idea of that personal brand. So what a brag-a-log is, it's a little bit different than your standard elevator pitch. And if you don't know what the elevator pitch is, you start on the first floor, your CEO is there, you get 30 seconds to tell him or her or they all about who you are. So with a brag-a-log, it's more like a story. And so for me, as a daughter of a first-generation immigrant from Haiti who came here, my mother instilled in me this notion of being limitless, that anything was possible, to exposing me at a young age to being a synchronized swimmer as a black person, to having exhibits at many different galleries, to then feeling like, you know, sometimes you're going to have challenges, but you can overcome it. Mm-hmm. I went from almost being in remedial reading classes to getting into AP classes by the time I was in high school. That not everything is going to come easy for us, but that you can overcome. And with that, I use that to go forth in terms of how I'm leading, how I believe that I can accomplish things, how I can be reliable. The other thing my mother also instilled in me was this notion that everyone has value, everyone has talent, everyone has something unique to bring to the table, and this is why I feel that I have that kind of judgment-free zone. Going back to that statement of limitless, my mother, when she came to this country, she said, America is so big, and I would like to see all of it. Before she passed away in 2018, she saw 49 states. I will say, a year later, I had gotten to all 50 states. Nice. So I always believe that you can accomplish anything.
You know, and I've got to say, no, for real, just to hear about her mom and that positive black female, and I know so many of us have those women in our lives too. For me, it was my grandmother who literally fled the Jim Crow South from Eufaula, Alabama at 16 years old, got on a bus and said, I got to have a better life, and moved to Chicago at 16, imagine this, when you're fleeing, and put her 2 children through college. My mother got her master's degree, and it's those decisions that people make that impact generations to come. And so your brand, your mother would be so proud of you right now. So proud.
And I think, again, it goes to, I saw my mother as a certain person, and then I'm like, oh, well, I'm not as nice and friendly as she is. But other people seem to think that I embody some of that. This Take 12 quiz, I found it very, very useful. And they also have ones for adolescents and in college area kids to really kind of take an inventory of what you bring to the table. I had a friend also took this Take 12 quiz when she was in grad school. She was getting a PhD in information systems, and for her to apply to get her professor jobs at different universities, she was just unfortunately bombing it because she wasn't marketing herself. She started using this book and these techniques, and then she got offered different roles. She ended up going to the University of Pittsburgh to be a professor there. So the next item that I want to talk about here, this one I'm actually going to turn over to Tani because she attended a women's session that talked about this concept.
Yes, thank you, Zelinda. So this concept of Johari's window is one that I will have to say I have had and put in practice pretty much my entire career. If I'm honest, when I get to one of the quadrants, it may be because I started out as a people pleaser, but I have matured and understand my own worth is not dependent on others. So I've actually moved a little bit out of that. But basically, this tool is a way for you to help understand what you're projecting, what you know of yourself, and what others know of you. So this top left quadrant is the open area. So for me at this moment, it would be, I'm a black woman, I work at Google, and I have on a floral dress. You know that, I know that, right? And then if we go to the lower left quadrant, that's the facade. So I think, Zelinda, we talked earlier, and you gave an example of someone like super shy. having to give a presentation. Like their knees might be buckling behind the podium, but they are so confident. So you may project them to be the confident person, but on the inside, they are dying, right? The lower right is the unknown. So to me, this is like your destiny. You have not yet gone into situations that tap into specific areas that you actually have on the inside, right? So these are things that you don't know of yourself, and neither do others. But I like to lean in on that blind spot. So again, I mentioned as a people pleaser, I was always seeking feedback because I just wanted people to be happy with me, right? And as I matured, I recognized that that should not be the basis of why I want that feedback. So I've matured, and now I look at this blind spot as a way. People think of personal branding as, oh, it's me, and this is what I am. It's actually the opposite. It's what other people think of you. So this quadrant says other people know this of you, but you don't know it as for yourself, right? So that means you're in a meeting, and we all know people that talk a lot, and they say a lot, but they're not saying anything, right? And then people walk into the room like, oh, not a meeting with Miss Talk a Lot again, right? And so that person's like, oh, I'm killing it because I always have something to say. People hear my voice, and I'm going to go in there, but it's not landing. So your intentions don't matter when it comes to relationships and people around you. You need to check in with folks to understand, is it landing? And if it's not, you need to figure out ways to close the gaps. That's not saying it's not saying don't be true to yourself, but clearly there's a disconnect between what your intentions are and what you're trying to land and how it's being perceived.
Okay, so question for you is, how did you discover your blind spot?
Again, it is that feedback loop. Clearly, after every presentation, in a meeting, closing a program, lessons learned, like I have been, and even I would say it spills over into my marriage. Like I'm always checking in to see, hey, I did X, Y, and Z. And I don't tell people what I expect the outcome to be. I want them to tell me. And if it doesn't align with what my intentions were, then I've got some work to do.
Okay, good. So feedback.
Feedback.
And also maybe receiving that feedback.
Correct.
So a lot of us get it, but do we actually receive it?
Very correct.
You know.
Very true.
So now I'm going to turn a little bit over to leadership. And the idea of leadership is really, as a leader, we need to be adaptable, flexible, and constantly learning. So 2 specific topics that I'm going to talk about as it relates to adaptability. The first one is emotional intelligence. If you haven't had a chance to read the books by Daniel Goldman, I would recommend it. He has several books actually on emotional intelligence and doing emotional intelligence in the workplace. But emotional intelligence starts with the fact that we all have emotions. Okay, so we're going to be working with people, and they're going to be bringing themselves and their emotions. So the first area of emotional intelligence is that self-awareness. We all have things that are going to trigger us, things that are going to make our bubble boil. So it's recognizing when we're getting triggered and understanding that that's a feeling that we're having, and it could be a really natural feeling that you're having. The next one is social awareness. This is about understanding the room and understanding the emotional energy that the room is giving or of your employee. The third one is that relationship management. So it's figuring out, how do I make those connections so I can get those outcomes that I'm looking for. Now we tie this all together, especially if you're in one of these heated situations. How do you deal with regulating your emotion, the other people's emotions, so you can get that really outcome that you're looking for and de-escalate a situation? As a leader, we're going to have to constantly look at what's going on in the room and how we are responding to that. Second area of adaptability is related to situational leadership. This is another good book to talk about situational leadership. So situational leadership is understanding that there's not one leadership style for every person. There's not one leadership style for every person at every season of their life. So I'm a person that I'm always like, I want to be able to delegate. I want to throw out a concept and let a person run with that ball. Unfortunately, that's not something that can happen every time. And I think part of me why I want to do that, because the notion of like being micromanaged just seems like really, really bad to me. So I never want to do that to someone else. But there's examples where you could have a very seasoned person who comes into a new organization, doesn't know any of the processes, doesn't know any of the checklists, doesn't know any of the tools. You can't just delegate to that person and say, make it happen. You may need to change your comfort leadership style to go into a place of how do I, give them a directing and step-by-steps to help them get to those different areas. So I would like to ask my panelists times that they've had to kind of use different adaptability techniques.
So first of all, we're going to talk about a lot of books, if you haven't figured that part out. So, and I'm going to give some book references as well. So when we were talking about this one, so in addition to being a leader, I've been a leader for about 16 years now. I'm also a mom. And so I have two sons who couldn't be more different. One is completely artistic, dances to the beat of his own drum, does not like to be conformed by time, and has a messy room. And then I have one who's a finance, compliant, clean room. It's just amazing. And I liken that to, I don't parent them the same. We don't parent them the same because they have different needs. And the same thing goes in the workplace. I currently have a team across the board, about 17, but direct 6 of them. And each and every one of them is special, authentic, and are in different seasons in their lives. And so as a leader, it's important to understand what season they're in. I have one who is recently divorced. I have another who has a very long commute. I have one whose children are grown. I have one that has no kids at all. And every single person brings something special and different to the table. And it's important to understand that. And so it is about the situations, but more importantly is recognizing them for who they are and what they bring to the table. So that's how I lead, is understanding and where they are in their careers and what they want in their careers. One wants to move up. One has no desire right now because of the situation she's in. And so again, those are seasons. And it's important to understand because seasons change as well. And so just constantly checking in. And I hope that, again, they tell me I'm approachable, that they can come to me, whatever the situation may be.
Yeah.
How about you, Tani?
I managed a team, and it was a group of 4, and I had 2 that were just so unique in like what they needed. And so we had our team meetings, but then when I would have my one-on-one syncs, I would structure it based on what worked for each of them. So I had one, she was extremely administrative. So everything was note, 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 note. And I'm like, I want to talk, right? And so because that's not my style, but I know that made her tick, she would do all the notes, and then I would come back with responses or additions, because that wasn't my style, but I wanted her to be her best self and not feel that she was not being heard. So I did have to adjust it, because that's what made her tick. And when you were talking about the example about the children, my husband's going to love this example. I cannot remember which NFL coach it was, but this coach said, you can't coach each position the same. Your offensive lineman, you're in their face and I want you to kill them and take them to, you want them all riled up and ready to go kill somebody, you know what I mean? But you have to, he said, but when I talk to my QB, I'm calm, I'm relaxed, because I need him calm and focused and dialed in. So there are different strategies depending on who you're communicating with, where you have to make sure you're effective by changing your style.
That's good.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about executive presence. Executive presence is a buzzword that I've been hearing a lot lately. And what really it is, it's going to that managed brand that you're going out and showing. So your executive presence is really that level of confidence that people have in you. So it's the level of confidence your subordinates have, the level of confidence your peers have, the level of confidence your seniors and your bosses have in you. So how are you instilling that level of confidence either through performance and through your brand that you're having?
Before you go on that one, though, I do have a book. So it's called Presence by Amy Cuddy. And her book talks about, because I had really bad imposter syndrome earlier in my career, of just standing in the mirror and literally doing your super pose, your superwoman pose to instill your own confidence. And it really does help when you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to be here or in the room or at the table. And again, a lot of it is how others see you, right? And so just wanted to throw that book title out there too.
Thank you. So how do we amplify your brand? There's many different things that you can do to amplify your brand. You should start with your performance and execution. With that, contributions to noteworthy activities or different assignments that are going out, and making sure that you are communicating what you are accomplishing and doing. Back to that toot your own horn. Ever since I was a kid, I used to write down all my accomplishments. Anytime I was trying to go into a new interview for a new job, I would list highlights of things that I've done, going back to that superpower and getting in your head like, yeah, I am good. I bring something to the table. So ensuring that you are promoting yourself, making sure your leadership knows about your accomplishments. If you have weekly activity reports or something else, like making sure you're making those notes of what you are accomplishing. Also, volunteering to lead a meeting, volunteering to be a panelist at Women of Color. And then, making sure that you're making these opportunities to speak at different engagements, at different organizations, so more people will know who you are, and you're, once again, amplifying that brand that you want to see going forward. In terms of leadership presence, it's similar, but you could start with resource groups at your companies. Those are usually specific to some sort of activity or some sort of affinity that you have, but being involved in those groups, because it gives you a cross section of people within your company, and once again, you're getting your name out there, you're getting your brand out there. Also professional societies, some societies including like Women Engineer Society, Women Engineers, the Program Management Institute. There's a whole slew, IEEE, there's a whole bunch of different societies as it relates to engineering or program management or supply chain or any of those different areas. HR has several societies as well. Attending conferences like this next year is going to be in Baltimore, or BEA, which will be also in Baltimore. But there's also just a lot of other local conferences that you can also be involved in, especially in the DC area. We have a lot that are associated with women in defense, women in federal government, even going to the ones that don't just say women and just getting, exposure in those different areas. So managing, this is our concluding slide, and then opening it up for just questions, and Nicole's gonna kick off with a couple of questions to us, but managing your authentic brand. I think we mentioned a little bit before, but it has to start again with who you are and being true to you. If you start showing a brand that is not who you are, you will be found out, and that will become your brand. Your brand will be the person who lies.
The fraud.
So understand what your brand is, and maybe you need to grow on things, so skills. So it's not that you can't improve on things that you are weak at, but you're going to start with that performance and roles. You're going to start with how are you executing. The other thing is how are you communicating? Communicating in email, text, Teams, or Hangouts, or Messenger.
If you say so.
I don't know what Google's texting thing is, sorry.
Google Meet.
Also, those types of etiquette. One that I haven't mentioned before is really getting that endorsement of a champion. So a champion is a little bit different than a mentor. A mentor can be a champion for you, but a champion is a person that's in the room when you're not in the room and is going to talk and promote you. So I have an experience where I went to interview for a job. I didn't know I was going to interview. She called it a chat. And then I come in and there's a panel. So lesson learned, every chat is an opportunity to brand and market yourself. I didn't get the job because I didn't have enough experience at that time, but I never worked for this woman. A couple of months later, she invites me to be a part of a roundtable mentoring on business development. I was a systems engineer, so the impression that I made at that interview made her feel like, would you like to be a part of this roundtable mentoring program? Then fast forward another year, awards were coming out for engineering and technology. She nominates me for an award. Again, never worked for this woman. When she changed companies and I had challenges at work, she was always available to meet up for lunch and I can brainstorm with her. And then when she became a CEO of one of her companies, when a position came up just even last year, she reached out and said, hey, I would love to work with you. I've always wanted to have you as a part of my team. Would you be interested? I did not go. I'm still with Peraton. But it was one of those things where having that champion endorsing you and having them help market your brand was just something that I was so grateful that she was doing for me.
So Linda,
Great example.
I was going to say, I'm sorry, Nicole, I know you're the real moderator, so please forgive me. But I just want to like speak to or unpack your resilience in the no, right? Because this is someone who set you up, right? And the fact that you didn't get it didn't like tarnish your impression of her or make you not want to lean in on that relationship. It was one that you kept going that actually is still paying off, right? So I think that resilience and being able to accept a no and understand that it's just perhaps that wasn't for you and that's okay as well, right?
Correct.
So I do want to ask you though, tell me about how you manage your brand. What is it about you that differentiates?
So I think I have a top three. I would say my first is being myself. Now, I do know that we sit in rooms and we see aspects or characteristics in others that we would like to emulate. As long as they are still a part of your value system, go for it. If you're finding yourself pivoting and becoming not who you are, you cannot sustain that for very long and be happy. So be yourself is the first thing that I say. Secondly would be know your ish. Like you better know your stuff when you're sitting at the table. You have to build a reputation of the person that is the expert. So don't come with fillers and buzzwords and whatever I feel like executive presence was one. I've been hearing guardrails all the time. Like don't do that. Know your stuff so that you're the person that folks are like, oh, I need her in that room on this topic because she delivers. And then the last thing I would say is amplify your superpower. We are all created differently, and that's an intention. And if you're spending too much time trying to be like someone else, then the world and those around you are missing out on what you were created to do. So please make sure you are bringing your whole self, and amplify that superpower. Now, I find myself, though, teetering sometimes on the whole opportunity weakness thing. I think we hear that a lot. Oh, you need to strengthen your weakness. Well, if my weakness is your strength, then maybe I'm okay. I just need you on my team.
That's right.
So lean into the things that you're good at and surround yourself with people who are strong in your weaknesses. That way you're not always trying to kill yourself to be good at everything. You're not created to do that. Bring what you were created to do.
Very well said. Thank you. So, I was thinking about the first thing up there, though, performance in your role. For me, and I'm going to ask you in a minute, too. For me, what's important is a lot of times lateral moves are so important because once you get so high, you can't go back.
Good point.
And so I remember one role in particular, I took the role no one wanted, okay? They're like, oh, that role's a popcorn stand. Nobody wants that role. But then I went to my mentor, and he said, but it's your popcorn stand, okay? So you can have salt and pepper, a little bit of caramel. And, I am from Chicago. I do love Garrett's. And I made that role what I wanted it to be. And actually, it was my first supervisory role. I had 8 direct reports, and sure enough, after I moved through that role, it became like one of those high potential, they were like, that's a really good role for new people to come in. But that role that nobody wanted led me to the next 2 roles that helped me to differentiate myself from everyone else. And so my example's a little extreme. I went from that to leading a talent team for the enterprise, and then I went on and they asked me to go global. So I took a 5-year assignment in Southeast Asia. Now imagine taking your husband and 2 sons with you when they were 10 and 13. Wow. We moved to Jakarta, Indonesia. And that indeed is what my brand is I'm an HR professional who spent 5 years in Southeast Asia. It's not for everybody, okay? They're like, are you Michelle Obama? Yes. I'm from the south side of Chicago, just like her. There were literally 5 black women in Indonesia, and that's who they knew. And then we went on to Singapore as well. But those types of brand, like really thinking through of just how can I differentiate myself is what led me to where I am today, and I'm so grateful for that. Again, it's not for the faint of heart. And there are other ways to do that. It doesn't have to be so extreme, but I did want to mention that we took a gamble, we took a risk. It was one of the best things for the entire family, quite frankly, and one of my sons indeed speaks Mandarin as if he is a native speaker, spent years in China as well. And so I look back at those years and go, wow. And so I'm going to ask you as well, if you have, what is your brand and how do you help to differentiate yourself?
So a little bit in my brag-a-log was a part of my brand. In terms of differentiating myself, I was born with a name with a Z. So I started off just as a person who always thought that I was going to be unique and different. Or people think my last name is my first name and they call me Cyril all the time. So part of it was understanding who I am, taking the time to realize what are my strengths and weaknesses, doing those inventories, having a cadre of people I could trust to talk about how am I coming off, what do they see in me, also accepting the feedback, as we talked about earlier about those things. I think for me, it was easy to accept the negative. It was harder to accept the positive in certain cases because I saw others doing the thing that I thought I was not doing. So for me, building my brand is understanding those areas, understanding, where I came from, where I'm at, how I want to show up at places. So I think we also talked about if you're in a place that is going to make you not bring your authentic self day in and day out and it's just hurting you, that's not a place for you. If you're in an organization that you have to be mean all the time because that's everyone's talking and you're not a person that thrives off of being mean every time, then that's not an organization that you need to be a part of. If you do like that, that's good too.
Different.
It's different. We were talking a little bit about the blind spots.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about how I discovered one of my blind spots as well. I had the opportunity to get one of those 360 kind of reviews that they could do, and you do like an inventory and they came back with results. And what was interesting was the place that was my blind spot was reading the social cues of others. So I talked a little about emotional intelligence. I'm from New Jersey. Maybe me and my friends, we were always just straight to the point. I'm going to ask you something, you're going to say something. If you don't want to hear, then we shouldn't be asking. So if I ask you a direct question, I am thinking you're going to give me a direct answer. So that's how I thought as an initial leader. And then I noticed that I say, hey, if you need anything, how can I help you? What do you need? And somebody would say, no, I'm good. I'm like, okay, well, she said she was good, so she's good. And it took me a while to think like, no, she's saying something else. The words are, I'm good, but she's saying something else. So it then goes back to kind of what we were talking about as a leader. We have to see people for people and look at that totality of what they're saying. So it took a long time for me, and I did very purposeful and focused of saying a person may say something, but that might not be what they're really saying to me. And so reading those social cues of others was a big, huge blind spot that I had to work on because that wasn't how I grew up.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I want to open up the floor to questions that you may have because we want to make sure we have plenty of room. So if you have a question, you can go to the microphone. Oh, wow. Oh, look. Uh-oh.
I'll get up here first.
Okay, so tell us your name and what your favorite streaming show is, too.
Oh, my. Okay. My name is Eileen Weathers. I am from Metro Detroit, so welcome to all the out-of-towners.
Love Detroit. Thank you.
Yes. I hope you're enjoying your stay, and I'm a transplant here. I'm actually from North Carolina initially, and I'm a U of M alum.
All right, go Blue.
Yes, go Blue. My favorite, unfortunately, I don't have time to watch TV, but I would say probably, and I don't even remember the name of the show, but it's the one where the matriarch just passed away. It's not Bridgerton, but it's something
Good
like
Times?
that.
Oh, no, no, I know.
Downtown Abbey.
Downton Abbey, yes.
I know.
Maggie Smith.
I'm catching up. I didn't see E.T. either. But anyway, okay, let me make this short. Thanks for sharing. I'm a first-time attendee, and I must say this has been a breath of fresh air with just everyone sharing their stories and being transparent. So I appreciate that. I think we've gotten a lot of content from these sessions regarding getting your resume together, getting all of the recipe going. But one area that I'd like to get a little more feedback or structure on is cultural fit. Because oftentimes when there are decision makers and you're an interviewee and they're going around trying to make a decision to hire you or extend an offer or take you to the next level, I think that's an area that can be a little evasive for an interviewee to prepare for.
Great question. So again, I'm probably the people person in the room. So as far as cultural fit, there's a couple. So your question is asking how do you determine whether you're a fit? So there are many ways you can do that. I think one, there are, this is the beauty of social media these days, is like there are certain websites you can go to, and Glassdoor is one of them, where you can hear from other employees. LinkedIn, you can find out who are other employees that you are connected to. People call me all the time, like, tell me what it's like. It's important that you get a sense for that culture, because like we were saying, if it's not you, it's going to be harder. And so I think those are some of the initial, I don't know if you have any other thoughts, ladies.
The one thing I think about too, that is the solid point. The caveat, I feel like when you are looking for a role, I always look at an interview as they're not just interviewing me.
Right.
I'm interviewing them. So flip it so that you own your yes. You own if you want to be there or not. So that way, you already have, if you do the research like Nicole just recommended, you're looking at it like, okay, you might be questioning me, but I've got some questions for you. So just change the perspective a little bit and add a little bit more of your ownership, and it's not all on them.
And most places will allow you to ask questions, so make sure you have your questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Darlene Brown. I am what I call a seasoned professional. I have more than 35 plus years.
Love it.
Thank you. Originally from New York City, so my question has to do with being direct. I have had more than 30 direct reports, and I am a direct person. But in the virtual world, in this new hybrid world, because I'm old school where we went to work every day, sat around a round table, and it was just different. How do you manage new direct reports that you never met, and it's virtual? They don't know maybe you and your personality, because we know that nonverbal communication is 73% of communication. And when we are not in face-to-face dynamics in person, the virtual aspect can alter that. So how do you manage that? And that's for the woman.
Linda.
Linda, thank you. Or anyone else that might want to chime in. But how do you manage that? Because you can come across sometimes as being impersonal or abrasive. They don't understand your intent because they've never met you in person. And how do you work with that? Thank you.
Yes, so my new position that I actually just came into is a hybrid virtual situation. Before I was in a more that I had to come into office all the time. So the virtual world is fresh and new for me. I found that I am forcing conversations, so I am sending a lot of Teams meetings to folks. To start having that kind of back and forth feedback, because they don't know me, I don't know them. They don't know how I'm going to come out and talk to them about things. But really, it takes time.
It does.
It even takes time when you are seeing them day to day. One of the things that I started trying to do, because I thought people felt, I had a deputy that I thought they felt that she was like this happy, bubbly person, and I was the serious one. Because she would always like start I am like, happy Monday. I was like, huh. Like, could that be me? So then I tried like, happy Taco Tuesday. But yes, it's not how I really would greet a person, in person, but also in the virtual world, I wouldn't necessarily greet you like I would probably just start with, where's this assignment, instead of, hi, where's this assignment, right? So for me, if I was trying to create like that personable, and I think that I'm nice at times, kind of feeling, that I did start doing things like Happy Friday, or, like, hi, how are you? I tried to hear her voice when I would text it. So for me, I've changed a couple of things in how I'm communicating as a texting, and then I'm also trying to establish a communication path that I can start getting to know people, getting to know what are those things that make them tick, being available and approachable. Because in the virtual world, it is, to me, I'm still learning it, and it seems to be a lot harder. And when I'm hearing somebody saying something direct, I'm like, is that what you really mean? Like I had an employee, I gave him feedback within 2 minutes. He was like, so how long you need? 2 weeks? I was like, are you quitting? He's like, I guess so. I'm like, I was like, okay, cool. And then we talk all the things that we can do to make things better. But at the end, I said, okay, so if you're looking for a new assignment, I can help you out and find. He's like, wait, are you firing me? I was like, no! You literally told me, and the second words out of your mouth was 2 weeks. Okay, so you're not, this is just you vent. Okay, cool. So
Again, because I'm from the people's team, maybe this is extreme, but my staff meetings, every staff meeting, we have an icebreaker question, just like I asked. So we come up, and different people lead the meeting. So we do everything from Taylor Swift or Beyonce. And then, they all weigh in and say why they're Swifties or why they're, a part of the Beehive, or just coffee or tea. And I have a global team, so we have folks that are from China, from Singapore, from Brazil. So we try to really make it fun, and it's a fast way to get to know people, but we do it literally every staff meeting, believe it or not.
And video chat,
Yeah. Oh no, it's always video.
It's gotta be on
Absolutely.
camera so you can,
Absolutely.
see that nonverbal language as well.
Absolutely.
On camera.
Always
Make sure
on
it's
camera.
on camera. Otherwise, you won't build that rapport.
Oh no, it's a requirement. So and we work from home on Fridays. You see my kitchen. It's like, yeah. Okay, and so the next person has to tell their TV show though.
Oh, I was getting ready to say
Okay.
it. My name is Courtney Smith. I'm a business analyst at Apple. My favorite streaming show is Truth Be Told with Octavia Spencer on Apple TV Plus. Feedback has been a recurring theme in this session. So when I first started my career in Apple retail, one of the training courses we had to take was Fearless Feedback. It's a customer service training course, and one of the key points was assuming positive intent. So my question to you as leaders is, how do you approach situations where you're giving feedback and assuming positive intent, and then also when you're a leader, maybe giving feedback to either your subordinates or your leadership, and you notice or you feel as though positive intent is not being used in your feedback that's being given, how do you redirect those situations?
That's a good one.
That's a great question.
I know the answer. You go.
Are you okay?
I'll let you.
You sure?
Go for it.
So I would say, from an intent standpoint, I always like to show up with data, whether it's feedback that's given to me or I'm giving. So that way, because some of that intent, there can be some emotion behind it as well, depending on the topic or how long we've been talking about this issue or whatever the case may be. And so if someone is giving me feedback, even if I don't assume positive intent, I need the data that supports what they're saying. And I do the same when I give feedback. And that way it kind of level sets and make sure no one is, feeling some kind of way while we're discussing something. Because when you get down to the data, if it's a basic concept, then we're just being emotional.
Do you have any?
I would say I always assume good intent with my employees, because why are we spending so much time in the office if you don't actually want to come and do a good job? You might not want to be the rock star or the Beyonce, but you're there to do a job. And if you then determine that this is not the place for you, we can talk about that part too. But I usually go in with the thought of positive intent. And I take it on me if things get a little kind of heated or off the rail, that there might be something, either I need to do emotional intelligence or I didn't build the relationship with my employee. Because that's something over time we can build, and so they can know that I'm coming to them because this is something that we need to talk about and we need to deal with. But if they don't trust me because I haven't built that relationship beforehand, then how do I build it going forward? Because I do believe that they want to come and do a good job.
Yeah, so a couple things too is it's got to be timely. Not in the meeting, but perhaps right after the meeting. So as a leader, I make sure that my feedback is not 6 months later, like, or at your performance review. It's like, really? From last May? No, I'm going to give timely feedback. I also give balanced feedback. It's like, here are the things that you're doing really well. Because I can always find something they're doing really well. And then here are the things that we need to work on. And the answer is we need to work on. So it's not just you, but me and you together. And so as a leader, that's one of the things I would say. As when you're receiving feedback, it's a gift. And receive it as such, because a lot of times people won't tell you. And when they won't tell you, then you won't know. And so even if you have to accept some tough feedback, it is indeed a gift. And so look at it that way so that you can work on whatever it is that the person has been brave enough or given the courage to tell you.
That's good.
Yeah.
My name is Usha. I'm a research engineer at Apple. I watch less TV, but I like this children's show. I teach kids, so I watch this children's show called Stillwater on Apple TV Plus. There is like a huge panda. It's fun. It's fun. It's to the both sides for adults and kids. Anime is always to audience. And the other show that I'm looking into these days is The Chosen. I don't know if any of you heard about that. My question is, Zinda or
Zelenda.
Zelenda? Okay.
We're both like Zelinda.
I heard you say that your champion gave you this opportunity to be working with that person, and you ended up saying no. To me, that sounded like, oh, something has went into that thought process before that no came in, especially when I have a lot of mentors, and I really appreciate when they champion me and put me first. What went into that process saying no, and this is where I want to be, and how did that happen? And how did the communication go back to that person who is trying to represent you when you were not there?
Yeah, so with the position that thank you for the question, the position that I ended up saying no to, it was with a different company. So that was, I think, the biggest catalyst in kind of our calculation. Peraton has been very good to me. Peraton has been a place that I've been able to grow and develop and try new things and redefine myself multiple times. So to leave, it would have had to be really, really strong. And the strongest part was I was going to be able to work for her. And that made it a thing that I thought hard about. But after I said no, we are still friends on LinkedIn, still friends on Facebook. I know that if I do change my mind later on, I can always still reach out to her. There was not an ill feeling about what happened in that. And then, we're at competitor companies. So when her company wins something that my company was going after, we're congratulating, vice versa. So over time, we still have a very good respect for each other. But she lost because Peraton I liked more.
Hi, my name is Megan. I'm a student from Toronto, Canada.
Oh,
and I'm a big Trekkie, so my favorite show is probably Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But I know you were talking about how you went to that interview and you got declined the job offer, but you still chose to lean into that champion and mentor relationship. So I was just wondering, can you talk more about how you can choose to kind of ignore the negativity bias and still choose to lean into mentor relationships, even when, you're kind of disappointed? Because
Well, I think, Nicole mentioned feedback is a gift. So getting that kind of feedback, and the feedback actually wasn't bad. It was that there was someone better. So she said it really nicely in the feedback. So understanding like what that process is, like going to that interview was the first time I ever did a panel interview. It was the first time I saw the structure of how like this company at the time wanted to do things. So then I was able to like study and learn and craft and make my interviewing much, much better in the future. In terms of kind of leaning into a person who, in a sense, rejected you, it really goes to that person. You know, she was open to that, right? When she gave me the feedback from the interview, the vibe that I got from that conversation was one that I could follow up with her. It's not going to be that for everybody, you know, that you would meet. But when you're seeing a person that you respect or, you know, think that they have some characteristics that you like, I would say reach out to them and talk with them. They could be advocates, mentors, something. And if they say no, then that's a sign that they're probably not the right person for you to choose as a mentor. I don't know if you have.
I would always go with, like, instead of just asking for mentors, like, can we just meet for a coffee?
Mm-hmm.
You know, most people will say yes to 30 minutes. But, and then with time to see if that person is indeed the right fit for you. And again, for me, it's my nervous system. I can always check. Like if I'm anxious and I was like, this isn't it. So I have my own internal checkpoint that I do.
I think in general, I don't look at no as never.
Right.
I don't look at no as not at all. No could also be not now. And so I just had to reframe what no looks like to me, because it's inevitable that you will hear no. Mm-hmm. Be comfortable to hear it and grow.
My name is Janila Greer. I'm a student at the University, a biomedical engineering student at the University of Cincinnati. I don't teach kids. I don't work with kids, nothing like that. I am the big kid. So the show I've been watching recently is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No judgment, no judgment.
Step into your authentic self.
I was debating on changing my answer, but I was like, no, this is my truth. This is my truth. So my question is, how would you go about changing your brand, more specifically if you're somebody who likes to get work done from in the shadows and you want to step out into the spotlight, especially because like when you're making such a drastic transition, it could be stressful, or like with your environment, if you try to like be like, oh, well, I have an idea for this, everybody gonna be looking at you like, well, who is this? We ain't never seen her before. So how can you like go about overcoming that discomfort to change your brand into something that you want to be more comfortable in, or just trying something new?
I just wanted to say my friend who went to Pitt is now a professor at Cincinnati. And I was just out in Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago hanging out with her and her kid. So I don't know if one of you want to take the question.
You know, I think it's a great question. For me, I have had to do that, you know, where I wanted to change the narrative on who and how I was showing up. And so I did do a lot of just self-reflection. You know, the other thing is if you have, I call it my circle of five. So my circle of five are 5 friends who are almost like my personal board of directors, okay? And those women, and that was from, my mother had her circle of 5 too, and they just tell me like it is. And so I say, okay, how am I showing up? You know, in school, like you talk too much, you know, that kind of thing. And so really just being a better listener was one of the things that I work with them first. And so if there are things that you were saying, hey, these are things I want to improve about myself, think about who those friends are. It could be girlfriends, guy friends, siblings, cousins, whoever, the colleagues that you work with, and just say, hey, I'm really wanting to do this and be intentional about it. I had one friend, she's always late, and she's like, you're always on time. I need you to help me be on time. I was like, go earlier. But seriously speaking, I think that's one practical way, is just finding the people who will be truthful with you for that feedback that may be harder to get if you're a student and not in like a workforce environment yet.
And I think I heard you say if you're more comfortable in the shadows, but for growth you want to be more in the forefront. What I would say is that stretch to be more in the forefront too much for you? Understand that, but before making the decision, what is your why? Why do you want, like, is it because you feel like you're being stagnant or you're not being noticed? Understand what's driving you to want to shift from your comfort to something else. Because if it's not something that's innate for you, that's going to make it even tougher, right? So understand what's driving you to do that, and then make the decision from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving us this opportunity and sharing your experiences. Very helpful. I would say I've learned a lot from you leaders. My name is Valemi Anju, and I am from the SAP retail team where I work as a project manager. Company Apple. Are we still on the TV show?
Yeah, of course.
I don't have any favorite TV shows at this time because when I was in college, the show, what was it called? All My Children. I almost did not have my degree because it was at a certain time that a mandatory class was, being held. And for 2 semesters, I kept postponing. And I'm like, I'm not going to graduate if I keep. So because of that, I stopped watching that TV so I could graduate. Until today, I don't get addicted to any show.
Was that with Erica Kane?
Erica Kane.
Yes.
All right. I was there with you
and
for a while.
Angie back in the day, for those old school, Jesse and Angie.
Yeah. So that's my story on why I don't have any show. Sorry. My question, if it's really a question, is, in life, like you said, or sessions that I've heard, we all have seasons. And I am in the tech space, have been for most of my career. I started off as a chemist and transitioned into technology. But that's not really where I want to be. I mean, not that I don't want to be in the technology space. I don't want to be an SME. I don't want to be a specialist in technology. And if you get, we've talked about feedback, which when you take feedback and where you want to be, you recognize some truth or some generalities, so you're on the right path. What if what that really holds true for you or where your passion really is not in where you currently are? How do you bridge that gap? Let's say now, like I said, I'm in tech, right? What if I want to be on the runway? That's my question.
So I think we can always reinvent ourselves. I look at this. This may sound bad though, but Paula Deen became the Paula Deen that was in the cooking shows and everything in her 40s. Paula Deen also became the Paula Deen that got crashed and burned in like her 60s
right?
stuff, right? So I think there's an opportunity that we can always pivot. Realize that it gets harder, I think, as you are, known for one thing and wanting to move into something else, right?
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that you can't.
Okay.
So if going into a different career, I've been thinking myself that I would love to own a vineyard. I think it would look beautiful and wonderful for me to own a vineyard. But I'm not a farmer. I'm not a chemist. I just like wine, I guess. But for me, I've been starting to get certifications in what is involved in wine. So I did wine and spirits certifications. I'm taking courses about what it's like in the wine industry. I was just talking to a woman yesterday in Detroit who has a wine shop, and what are those different challenges? It will be a huge shift for me going from a federal contractor to owning a wine shop. But that may be where my bliss is at the end of the day. So I think that maybe that goes back to anything is possible. I think that we do have opportunities to make changes. Just realize it makes it harder the longer you're known for one thing to pivot.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it can't happen.
But every decision you make is intentional, right? Like if you say, this is what I want to do. So looking at every single person in this room, and so it goes back to even what I was saying, like your mother and our moms. There's a book by Isabel Wilkerson, The Warmth of Other Suns? She talks about, and then I'm gonna bring it back in a minute here, the generations that they made a decision whether they chose to immigrate from Europe from Africa. Well, from Africa, some of us were brought against our will, but choosing the Jim Crow era to go west and to go north. And though you don't realize it, there are generations back that led you to sit in this seat today. So thinking about where you want to be intentional about it and say, if this is what I truly want to do. I have a friend at 55 years old, she's going to law school. Okay? And everybody's like, why? It's something she's always wanted to do.
Okay.
And so it's never too late.
Okay.
And so just think about like how you got in this seat today and what leads you here. There were somebody that made a decision in your family a long time ago that for whatever reason brought you to this room today.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know if there's anybody else who wants to say.
Hello, everyone. First of all, amazing job. Thank you so much for all the wisdom that you have shared. We're still doing the TV thing, right?
Yeah.
I'll start with the introduction first.
It's a long icebreaker. I'm the people person.
Love it. I'm Lizelle Machado. I work at Amazon.com as a supply chain optimization engineer. I have two questions, actually. Oh, before that, the show. I always love the criminal and investigative shows. So my favorite one is Chicago PD. I'm like addicted to it. Yes, thank you. I have two questions, actually. My first one is, how do you read the culture of the organization? So how do you know what it tells? So that's first. And then the second one is in relation to the first one. How do you know, or in a way, it's like if someone gives you feedback, you always take it as, like the way I pursue it as, is I just need to raise my standards. If someone is telling me, it's always with a good intention, right? But then there is a point where the bar gets subjective. So it's like, it always keeps on changing, always goes to a point where I'm changing. But then where do you see the power that, oh, I'm challenging the team to think to the high standards? Versus where do I know, or how do I know that, yes, this is the tolerance limit I need to go to? And then, so it's like voice versus exit, right? So how do I use my voice? And how do I know that, yeah, this is the time. Now I need to look for the exit strategy. So those two things there.
You want to take it, Tani?
So I think the latter one is resonating more with me. So I don't know if you're looking for it to be like consecutive, because you said that the second is in relation to that.
It can be different. So it's like might be two different scenarios, but like those two are like the things that made me think about like how does this resonate to the individual contributor? Because it's like being at the top seat, it's very easy to enforce things, but then being at the like individual contributor level, it's like it goes from bottom to top, but then there are some systemic and grassroots level things which has to come from top to down. So
you're mentioning feedback, and clearly that is essential for this whole personal branding thing, right? So I always like to keep in mind with the feedback how much of it is something that propels me in my current role or helps me get to my next. And you mentioned that sometimes it can always change, and because leadership changes, right? So it also depends on what those leaders like or expect as well. And so there has to be an element where you own it for what you're striving and driving to be. And it cannot always, I feel like we put too much onus and responsibility on others for where we're headed. So I think you own how you, number one, take the feedback, if it's applicable to where you are and where you want to go. And if it's not, then you hold the keys. That's your destiny. That's your future. So don't put all of the onus on someone else's decisions. You change as much as you feel comfortable with that makes the most sense for what you have planned.
amazing. So basically knowing the limit for yourself, like where
absolutely
it gets comfortable versus this
absolutely
against my values.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. Because it could be like we talked about the blind spot. If it's a blind spot and you think your intention is one thing, but it's not being it's not landing that way, then maybe you need to close a gap. But if it's just, you know, a perception and it's not really getting you to what your next is, then, you know, take it with a grain of salt. And maybe there's something in there for you to learn, but it's not necessarily you have to go and change who you are because you keep getting all this different feedback.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then the first one, how to read the room. Well, not the room, but like how do you read the culture of the organization?
Sometimes you don't really know until you get in there, right? And I always say, like, again, you can always go back to wherever it was, but it's again talking to others who are in those organizations if that's what you're really concerned about. But sometimes you got to take a risk.
I know, right? And it takes a while there.
And it's just like a calculated risk of like, how big a risk is this really? And because if you don't take a risk, if you don't, then you will stay.
Yeah.
in those. And sometimes it's fine to do that. There really is no right or wrong answer.
And I think you brought up a very good point. So it's like, yes, we always hear a lot of positive words, but it's like the intangibles, right? Yes, we say one thing, but then there's some other thing that's going in between the teams. So it's like, I feel like talking to other people kind of gives us more exposure to
Look,
what's the actual language.
can you imagine, I like said, okay, we're going to move to Indonesia, okay? That's a huge risk. But one of the things we kept telling kids is we can always come back. And I talked to other people who have done it, and I was like, you know, we're going to do this. And if it doesn't work for us, we'll just come back. And so just asking yourself, like, who are the people that have done it, whatever it is that it is.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes, so the 3 that are standing, those are the last 3 we're going to take until, unfortunately, we have to close this off because we could be here all day. It was so much fun.
I'll make it super quick. Mariela from Amazon. I manage a data collection team for drone operators. So I have a team of about 11 folks whose ages could go from like mid-20s to late 40s. So when it comes to building your brand, I've been in a management position for a little over a year now, right? So I'm trying to identify what is the brand that I want to build. I know that I want to lead with empathy, but at the same time assertive and still bring a little bit of like who I am, my culture, right, into this this brand new field. But what happens when there's going to be your good and bad days, right? You have different people that you lead. You gave an example like children, right? Different children have different personalities. What happens when you encounter, you have to lead people who are just negative in general? Like, no matter what you do, what you say, it's like, I've been X amount of time here. I don't see career progression, and they're great at what they do, right? They perform, but they never go above. And I'm always open, like, hey, I can help. You need to tell me what you want for your career so I can help you. I don't know what you want, so I don't know in what rooms to put you, you know? How can I sponsor someone that I don't even know where they want to go? But that tests you. Because you want to be an empathetic leader, you want to be true to who you are, but sometimes it's difficult when you encounter difficult people.
Oh, yeah.
I feel another book recommendation, Dealing with People You Can't Stand. It talks about a whole bunch of different archetypes and how to communicate through those different archetypes. Being a person who's like a sniper or a tank, it was a beautiful book. I think the other thing to remember is that there's 2 people in this situation, and this person can make their own decisions. If they are not working with you to make you their advocate, that's not on you. That's on them. If you reflect and you are noticing that you have done things to prevent them from being able to communicate with you, then yes, correct and fix those.
Correct, yeah.
But they need to own their career. They need to own what they need and not need. You can, there's a whole bunch of techniques out there that you can work to open-ended questions to get them to think through things. Like those, do that. But if they just keep coming back with blah, 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 then that's your decision. And I think it's sometimes hard as empathetic managers to recognize that I can't fix you. You're an adult. You're going to have to figure your life out.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I will read that book.
Okay, so we've got 2 minutes, so we're going
I'm going to speak through it, I promise.
Okay.
Hey, my name's Jamaica Pritchard. I'm a lead hydrologist for the National Weather Service down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So roll tide, and I apologize for saying it. But I've been in a lead position for almost a year now, and it was kind of like a weird transition. I'm normally an introverted person, so me standing at this mic is like actually terrifying. But I've tried to make myself be more direct with to people under me, and even like with people above me too, just like saying like, hey, like this is what it is. But sometimes it feels like people get offended by how direct I am, and I don't think I'm being like I'm not like being mean, I'm not being a jerk about it. So with y'all's experience, how do y'all learn to hone that in? And just mind you, I'm an introverted person, so it's really hard for me to be direct, and I'm completely out of my comfort zone.
I'm an introvert.
She's doing really good.
I'm an introvert. As a data point.
I'd say it's the how. And again, you got to get some more feedback. That's important.
I mean, yeah, it's how you're giving that feedback. And I don't know. I mean, being direct is not bad, but sometimes we don't need to say everything. I've been dealing with a situation where somebody was laying out facts, like I told you this on this date, and then I followed up on this date, and I told you about it on this date. That's all true, and it's not wrong, but that's not how the person's going to receive, I want you to change, right? So another good book is Tung Fu. Tung Fu. It's the art of how you communicate when emotions get high and all that other stuff. So it teaches you how to communicate in other ways. Like, don't say the word but. When you say the word but, everything you said before it negated. You're really a nice person, but you're coming off, a little rough. So it's like teaching you how to like rephrase things to make it less maybe attacking to the person.
All right, that makes sense.
Okay. One last question to close it off. Tongue food.
Tongue food.
Tongue food. Okay.
Hi, my name is Christina. I'm a high school student from Canada. I'm with Megan over there, who asked the question earlier. I concur with the idea that leaders should have technical skills as well as soft skills such as adaptability and conflict resolution, as you mentioned earlier, which leads me to my next point. How do you go about navigating conflict resolution between two subordinates that have expressly voiced that they don't want to work with each other, be it work-related or personal, but you want to utilize their skills to get a task done? At that point, do you prioritize, perhaps them losing their respect for you and, just doing the job together, like kind of not wanting to? Or do you prioritize keeping them like separate while that may diminish the efficiency of, the task that you want to get done? Which is like a better...
That's a situational...
it's very contextual.
Yeah. So I think one thing is just sitting with each of them, just basically we need to work together. You don't have to like each other, but it's part of working here that we're going to respect each other and we're going to have to work together. And that's like a whole nother performance management conversation that I will have to have.
And there's an element of we've got an adult.
Right.
Like, I think we see that far too much in organizations, right? Grow up. Like, it happens, and we have to make it work. And if it's too much for a person, there are always other opportunities.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
Now we just have to convince Tani to get an iPhone for her family's sake so that she can be involved with the conversations. She doesn't even know she's missing FaceTime. Come on over. Come on over to the dark side. We got you, girl. Yeah. Oh, Maya, can you get one? Thank you, Miss Lynn. Miss Maya. Can I get Miss Maya to take a picture of the three of us?
Good to meet you as well. Yes.
It's a different, yeah. I just continued to advocate that that's what I wanted was an overseas assignment. And it took several
I
years.
can come down.
I just kept at it, you know. Ooh, that's hard. Wait, hold on a second. Tani, we're going to get a quick picture. Can I talk to you when we get off of the stage here? Okay. We're going to take a quick picture. Maya. Okay, sorry. Irvin. Okay.